The television took us away from individualism, from reading books, to a global ritual, a global village. Somebody will post the ritual, it'll go viral. The files get released, it'll go viral. Anything that happens is instantaneous partaking in the global electronic village. And that's what's going on with these Super Bowl rituals. These rituals like JFK going to the funeral on the TV, and the Super Bowl and the Olympics, which was all satanic this year, but we're partaking in a ritual, and the advertisements are part of the ritual.
Things happen at these events that are important. Bad Bunny has been showing us symbolism of all-seeing eyes. The rainbow symbolism is another MK Ultra symbol. Ishtar is affiliated to these things as well. Ishtar is associated with owls and Lilith.
Ishtar, before she was Babylonian, she was Sumerian. She was known for cross-dressing, the goddess who could turn men into women and women into men.
These public rituals, first they do sacrifice, and then they would have public orgies, and these were state mandated.
It is literally our attention that becomes part of this cybernetic organism. Super Bowl ads, all about machines.
In relation to Jeffrey Epstein, the whole beef jerky thing that was pretty recent, what was it, the other day they came out with that, thinking that it might be eating people.
And established most of the rules in the NFL, built off the back of Walter Camp. And he was also in Skull and Bones.
One of her first symbols, this is called Inanna's knot right there.
Ultimately, what I believe to be a sex magic ritual, opposing polarities coming together, and that's what he's got on his stomach there.
So it's all these cycles. So we have these people that correlate with a lot of things. Last year, Kendrick Lamar was about race. This year, ICE. ICE is a big thing. Now we have Bad Bunny correlate with major events that's going on only because they are there to harvest energy.
They've got everybody so brainwashed. You'll see Marxists and communists talking about their civil rights, and they don't even know civil rights are constitutional rights. They just all spew Weishaupt's doctrine and have no idea who Weishaupt even is. The same disease of the mind which was dominating the minds of the people in France before the French Revolution.
Did you watch the ritual?
Yeah, I was watching it with you guys on Rumble.
Oh, thank you. Was it all
I was lurking.
Because you've been looking at this stuff for so long, and everybody is in gratitude and I don't know the word for it, indebted to you?
Yeah.
Breakdowns? Yeah. Thank you for being here.
Thanks. Yeah, high profile rituals going all the way back to Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson. Remember that one?
With the Ishtar slip.
Nipplegate.
Nipplegate. Is that what it was called?
Yeah, so this was like the very first one for conspiracy theorists, you would say, with heavy on the symbolism, heavy on monarch, kids, Justin Timberlake definitely. The Jackson family is a good example of that kind of trauma.
Oh, wow, you're right, yes.
And this accident, kind of kicked off the whole, everybody tunes into the Super Bowl halftime show because something crazy is going to happen, right?
Yeah, did you see anything crazy happen just yet? Did you see, there's Jigglypuff. Did you see any Ishtar symbolism? Because I believe I learned this from you about the Ishtar and the fertility rites and all that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, why is this relevant? Is because magic revolves around these gods and goddesses, primarily Ishtar, the gods of Babylon and the ancient, Mesopotamians, that they just recycle their names or they get syncretized into different gods. And now it's the spirits that are behind AI, and they're not afraid to tell us that these are the kinds of deities and spirits that they're working with behind the technocrats, right? So Ishtar and Anna, yes, would be Whore of Babylon. You can see her symbolism in most of the female performances that they have. So like Madonna in 2012, when she was on that big throne, you could say she was an Isis Ishtar with the stars and everything. Katy Perry, that one was very heavily symbolized after her. She's the goddess who rides the cat-like beast in Hubbard and Jack Parsons' visions. And Inanna is always pictured with lions. There's Madonna.
There's the Madonna one, yes.
So yes, she's some kind of like space Mesopotamian Egyptian queen. Who else? Lady Gaga, you had her on by herself. Was that in like 2017, 2016 era? So yeah, whenever you have these girls on, it's going to be goddess symbolism, and it doesn't really matter which era, because we're all dealing with like a finite number of fallen angels, right, that they're trying to invoke on the planet. It's funny they started out in like a reed sugar field, like sugarcane. On one level, this is supposed to make us more sympathetic towards immigration, right? Open borders, multiculturalism, sharing our flag with a bunch of other flags, which just doesn't even make sense. So, and then you have like Bad Bunny, who is known for cross-dressing. Now, you guys, anybody can jump in and like give me some details about Bad Bunny, because I feel like they're just making up celebrities at this point.
Okay.
Because it's like, you've never heard of this person, and suddenly their star status is like Super Bowl level. So it's like, what's even going on here? I've never even heard of Bad Bunny, but apparently they're super huge. He is.
Yeah. Well, we had Isaac on earlier, and he was breaking down all the symbolism behind Bad Bunny, but here's them with the flags. This flag was interesting because they have the Illuminati pyramid. They're in the fields. They're in the banana fields later too.
So yeah, so they're in the fields. This is reminding us that they come from like what, like rural, kind of a slavery, kind of a communistic, very poor place, and they're like coming here for more opportunities, right? That's fine. But there's another layer I want to add on this, because Ishtar, before she was Babylonian, she was Sumerian. She was known for what? Cross-dressing, the goddess who could turn men into women and women into men. And also one of her first symbols, I don't know if you could see.
Yes.
So this is called Inanna's knot right there.
Inanna's knot. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. And that's her symbol, because see that picture beside it? Reed huts, they used to build these for storehouses, and they were symbols of fertility. So one of her very, very first ancient symbols is a bundle of reeds or sticks bound together. And it could be the very first, like...
Fascies?
Fasci, yeah, exactly. Because that also goes back to goddess worship. But anyways, so you have them in the reeds, you have them in the fields. Going back to Isaac, we just did this whole show about Cults of the Shadow, Kenneth Grant, where he's talking about the goddesses of Africa. We're like getting very primal, we're getting very tribal, we're getting what he is symbolizing here at the very beginning of the halftime show, right?
Mm-hmm.
Back to the roots, back to the grass huts, literally, papyrus by the river type stuff. And Kenneth Grant goes into Africa and the legends of like where voodoo comes from, Dohimi and Benin and those tribes. And those were definitely worshippers of their god, an androgynous god. Temple prostitution, all of the same stuff that you're going to find with Ishtar and Inanna, you're also going to find in these high-level voodoo places, which goes to places like Haiti, it goes to places like Puerto Rico, to Cuba, right? The rituals continue is kind of what I'm trying to say. We can go any tangent you want on that.
Yeah, no, that was a great show that you did. I'll post that in the party room, and I'll have your links down below. But that most recent one you did with Isaac going over to Kenneth Grant stuff was wild. And that's like one of those original Kenneth Grant type books that you buy. I like the story behind it too, where you were talking about, you got out the bookstore, you're like, what is this? And the old school. I just bought an old school book of Alvin Boyd Kuhn, who I've never read yet. Clint, who's in the back room with Courtney and all that, and Paranoid. I'll bring them up. I just want to get some, what you talking before. Yeah, so that's an old book. Here is a symbol that I also saw where he was on top of this cube, and there was 6 girls dancing around him. So it was like a Saturn kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And you've covered how like rituals go into the underworld. He was on the square, and then he like drops down into this home, which could symbolize as an underworld. I don't really know. I have to rewatch this to even get what's going on. That Inanna knot was crazy. And maybe he's probably Inanna for this ritual, because they kind of...
Well, that's what we're finding is you can be a male or female, and the goal is to be androgynous. And Courtney and I are going to do a show on the Dalai Lama, and I listened to this breakdown of the book that we're going to be covering. That's part of their core religion too, is the practitioner of Tibetan Buddhism is supposed to use women as batteries so that he can suck their power and become androgynous and on his path toward, apotheosis or whatever. So yeah, you've got the androgyny, you've got the primal going back to grassroots, him dancing on the roof.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's the goddess again. So there is one of her very famous legends is Inanna goes to the underworld to visit her sister Ereshkigal, and her sister gets mad at her and kills her and sucks out all of her life. And then people have to go save her, and she comes back and she's mad because no one was sad that she's gone. But yeah, so the catabasis of the goddess is one of the very first tales in this, what Joseph Campbell will call the hero's journey, right? So going into all of these archetypes of the myth of the hero's journey, but that also goes back to the legends of the goddess too.
Wow. And I wonder who her sister would have been in this ritual if that's what they were portraying. And it seems like that because they had Lady Gaga there, and then they had that guy that I just brought up who's wearing like a crop top, which they're making the guys, I don't know if you know about this, but crop tops are in now.
Oh, that's Ricky Martin.
Oh, that's Ricky?
Isn't it?
Oh my goodness, he's back.
Look,
he's living la vida.
I'm pretty sure that was him. I didn't hear it with the sound on because I was watching it on your channel, but yeah, that looks like him. So he was huge when I was a teenager. Ricky Martin, yeah, that like goes all the way back because he was back before everybody was pushed to be androgynous. One of the first steps was like metrosexual, right? So the guys who liked to get facials, and LA guys, basically like Ryan Seacrest. So Ricky Martin would have been one of those metrosexuals, but then it turned out that he was, actually fully gay. So
we're unlocking the Seacrest tonight. With Jamie Hanshaw. And then Lady Gaga was there too.
Well, and she's another androgyny character.
That's true. Yeah, we don't know what she is. Let me see if I can pull up the blackouts. Like it's very connected. Like the logo kind of looks like a blackout's happening. And in just a few minutes, we're going to bring Courtney on here and all that and everybody else. They were showing the power going out.
Weird.
Yeah, well, that's what I think this was symbolizing, was the power grid going out. That's the big conspiracy too, that the logo looks like the emergency SOS type system. And then there was a commercial about the SOS, which was a company called SOS. And then it was like flickering of lights and all these people parading. And I think it kind of just meant like revolution, like revolt.
Well, also, I mean, when the lights go out, it's going to be, depending on how long before it comes back online, people are going to get very tribal and scarcity-minded, resource hoarding. So it could get very...
Yeah, 3 days cannibalism.
Yeah.
That's in this book, 1 second after. Newt Gingrich told all Congress to read it. And that's like, it seems like that's what they're showing. That's crazy. I'm going to bring on everybody because I know everyone's excited to talk to Jamie Hanshaw. We're here with Jamie Hanshaw. Bring on Courtney first, and then I'll bring on everyone else. But
hey, Courtney.
When you two are together, it's incredible.
Oh, I totally thought that looked like it was Ricky Martin. That's really funny.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him or heard of him in a really long time, but yeah, that makes sense.
He doesn't look like he's aged very much. I thought it was weird that they just like flashed a frog very briefly. Apropos of nothing. Like what was up with the frog? I'll tell you guys my theory if you all want to tell me yours first.
I'm eating Fruit Loops.
Oh, you're eating. Okay, so
I was promised this was going to be a fruity Super Bowl, and they did not disappoint.
Going back to magic, okay, and primal, tribal, dawn of creation, African gods. So before the Ennead in Egypt, the 9 gods, there was the Ogdoad, which was like elemental gods, and there was like 8 snakes and 8 frogs. And this is the basis of Haitian voodoo that he talks about in this book. So frogs, while you were watching, somebody in the chat or one of you guys mentioned that frogs are like an unclean pestilence type of animal, right?
Okay.
So yeah, in Exodus, you've got the plague of the frogs. So there are always this type of damnation or plague. And I was working on this show that we're going to do with Hesher this week about 4chan and Pepe. So Pepe is also, if you remember in 2016, this was something they were relying heavily on to get Donald Trump elected, with the Kek magic and the meme magic. And Kek is also an Egyptian god of chaos and like amphibian elemental forces. There you go.
Yeah.
The chaos magic.
Like photobombing Jordan Peterson with Pepe the Frog to try and paint him as like an alt-right figure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this poor frog became this some kind of like symbol of hate, but it was crazy how they were using this meme magic. I don't have the book with me right now, but they were using chaos magic of like Austin Ozenspare and Peter Carroll of the, Libernal and the Psychonaut, that has to do with chaos magic. And I don't know, a nice way to say this, like touching yourself to certain sigils that you want and using that sex force to become a magician.
And that's this book?
Yeah.
I wonder also if there's like a transhuman kind of reference, because frogs, can't they like self-mate?
Oh yeah, so like I think some species can like turn into female or male so that they can spawn or whatever. Good call, Courtney. That's a good catch.
They perverted the word frog, which is supposed to mean forever relying on God, and they took that away. But I'm going to take that back.
Some frogs can change sex. It's a sequential hermaphroditism in response to population needs or environmental factors and pollutants like atrazine that have caused hermaphroditic conditions in some males developing both testes and ovaries. However, these cases do not lead to viable self-fertilization. They still do need. Yeah, but they have done in lab. Anyway, I don't know. That came to mind, but yeah. But yeah, so we're going to be doing on the Dalai Lama, which is very relevant to what she was just talking about, because the Tantra is all about how they use women, as you were saying, essentially as a battery so that they can take the power, so they can become like hermaphroditic and, ascend to godlike status.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild. We're going to bring on Paranoid American, Sean, Chris, and Clint. We got a big party here with all the podcasts that I listen to on the daily.
So the LX, I want to point out, LX is the Super Bowl title. It's Lux, which is light in Latin. And then they had a Jurassic Park commercial when you guys were talking, and that in the movie the power went out in Jurassic Park, and then they sacrificed the lamb to the dragon. Ricky Martin, he may be connected to the Martinists. And that but also the frogs are the symbol of rebirth into the golden age, possibly. I'm pretty sure they mentioned frogs in Jurassic Park during that scene at the beginning where they give the montage of how they make the dinosaur embryos.
Yeah, it's all related to the turning the frogs gay, because that was Alex Jones talking about atrazine runoff that could affect frogs that basically triggered that same biological response that causes them to switch genders. Well, like there was some kind of chemical runoff from factories that was causing that to happen in mass, and it turned into a meme about making the frogs gay. But it's literally that, which is the same thing in Jurassic Park, because that's when they're like, oh, don't worry, and when they realized they used the genetic code from one of these amphibians, that it was able to change its gender, and that's how they start reproducing in Jurassic Park. I gotta point out too, just because Jamie was mentioning the voodoo, that one of the goddesses in Carthage at the tail end of the Phoenician Empire was Tanit. Tanit was like the consort of Baal Hammon, and that Tanit, one of the animals that represented her, was the frog, and that was basically the trail. It went from the Phoenician Empire into Carthage, which is at the top tip of Africa, and then throughout the rest of Africa, and then into Haiti. So like a lot of like the voodoo and all these other religions that we say like came out of Haiti or came out of Africa, ultimately you could probably trace them all the way back to the same worship that they were doing in Carthage and then through the rest of the Phoenician Empire.
There was a connection with the word Cana, like Cana Phoenicia, Cana with the Hebrew word Chenel, but then there was a Native American word Chenel as well. The book was claiming the cross on the flag of Britain was about Cygnus, and that Canada was from the word Canadae, which was another Cygnus symbolism, which Cygnus is the fallen sign, the fallen angel, quote unquote.
I wonder if the what you're talking about with the cane, Jamie, with the sugar canes in the beginning, Private Party Room, Do Not Conform says there's sugar cane zombies as well. Going back to some of that voodoo stuff, it looks like.
Well, looking up this frog, it says that it's supposed to be the crested toad, which is like the frog from Puerto Rico, and that it's rediscovered in the 60s and rediscovered again in 2025. And is considered a ghost or a miracle animal. Its resilience and survival against the odds, that it's known to be associated with water and dramatic weather, earning its mystical reputation.
Is this like the coquille?
Yeah, the
concho.
The sapo, sapo concho.
That's
and then they were
wild.
showing that like, like almost like the power going out in like some kind of like lightning storm with how the lights is going out. So to represent some of the weather modification things that have been going on.
Well, sugar itself is a drug. It's a refined substance. I mean, sugar started slavery, basically. I mean, they wanted sugar. They demanded sugar, so they had Spain and stuff go get slaves from Africa. And you guys know the story, but right when you're born, they give you like a small amount of sugar or something, like in a syrup. The addiction to sugar on mankind is a plague. You look at parasite videos, and they give the parasites cane sugar or sugar, and the parasites go crazy. They start multiplying like crazy.
Well, what did you guys think of the wedding?
Well, they had all the flags of the world after the wedding. I would assume it's the wedding of the whole world.
From the very same book, as long as we're talking about, high-profile rituals, the high-profilest ritual there ever was called the sacred marriage. And I'm reading from the very same book that we were talking about, Anana's Reed Storehouse Symbolism. The sacred marriage was the central element of the New Year's festival in Babylon, in the ritual of which the king played under the part of the god Tammuz. And was there palm trees? Did you guys see palm trees?
Yeah, there was tons of palm trees.
Yeah.
Okay, that has to do with this too. He was known as the one great source of the date clusters. And if you look at Babylonian art, you're going to see lots of date palms, right? And so this whole New Year's ceremony in the Sumerian period had to do with basically the sexual intercourse between the incarnate god and goddess that took place in the sacred chamber of the temple known as the Egipar. After the sacred marriage, the goddess fixed the destiny of the king. So the goddess would probably be like the high priestess. It's not actually a supernatural ritual at this time, but we're looking into, we'll get into that later.
Well, it's a representation of the goddess.
Yeah. It says, investing him with divine power to ensure fertility and security to the land. This done, there followed great popular rejoicing, including a banquet and music. There were probably also games in which the king took part. So in ancient times, the entire thing would be about this sacred marriage ritual of the king and the goddess, and then the games were part of that.
Wow. And we did have the palm trees, like it was like all over it. Even in the Super Bowl logo, it was intentional that was on it. And that wedding happened with Lady Gaga performing. And then I'm also thinking here too, what, like, how Ishtar rides I wonder what kind of car this is.
It's like a Ford, 72 Ford truck. Yeah. Ford was connected to the Nazis.
Mm-hmm.
And Ford is doing this. Have you guys seen it? It's this weird, like, meditation cars. They're doing they call it like mindfulness meditation in their self-driving cars. And it has to do with your brainwave states that they're altering to help you meditate.
Oh my gosh.
I know. And this is like a few years ago. So it's not even recent.
Ford brought in the new era of cars in like 1988 with the Ford Taurus.
Yeah, mindfulness car concept. Best place to steer clear of everyday stress could be behind the wheel. No kind of like programming that going on there, I'm sure.
This was a legally binding ceremony. So right before the halftime, they actually did have a wedding. And also the boy he hands the Grammy to is Liam Ramos, who him and his father were seized by ICE a month ago in Minnesota. So it's like kind of like provoking that sides of it's both of us. And also when you see him at that picture of like South America flags, he's holding a football, right? And earlier we're talking about the nuclear football and the codes and love everybody. And it does to me symbolize like some kind of breach and war of fighting for your cause. So yeah, that's Liam Ramos right there, the kid that So just kind of poking more at the sides to keep us divided.
Oh yeah, yeah. The game itself, Patriots versus Seahawks. That Seattle is like one of the headquarters of the New World Order. That's where the culture is being born.
With all the protest of George Soros and the bricks, and there's just like bricks there. But I mean, maybe it's like building a house, but I don't think
You might be on something there.
yeah,
You could be right with that brick thing.
Or bricks, like the bricks economy.
Oh yeah, the BRICS nation.
So I thought that was funny, Jamie. You were saying that I've never heard of Bad Bunny either, but but I'm wondering if wasn't like bunny the symbol, like QAnon symbol for because right? Yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, right there, it's almost too easy to point out that the white rabbit, like that's so cliche. We all know that's Alice in Wonderland. That's Neo from the Matrix, right? We follow the white rabbit, and that's how we get out of the fake Matrix. Yeah.
The white rabbit is the yellow brick road. Bad Bunny was wearing all white. I mean, he would be the white rabbit. The Samsara to Nirvana thing, or Nirvana to Samsara.
Well, and the bunny is who you follow to go to the underworld, right? So it used to be Alice's Adventures Underground. So Wonderland is definitely in the chthonic realm of the underworld, isn't it?
Yeah.
Did you guys get to see the Budweiser commercial with the horse and the eagle, and they have a like little shot of where the horse is jumping and it has like the wings, it almost looks like a Pegasus? That is the early indication of celestial wisdom, freedom, and divine inspiration. So, and it is the year of the horse, right? With the eagle representing America and stuff. So maybe it's like the prosperous.
The year of the fire horse. Yeah.
Yep. It like raises the little bird and eagle, and it's like they're buddies. And see right there, boom.
Yeah, the Pegasus. Well, the Pegasus is one of the symbols of the four horsemen, the red horse.
Mm-hmm.
The Alephus Levi, the Baphomet drawer. It's his birthday today, and this is at Levi Stadium. Did you have any thoughts on that?
Weird. I did not know that.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? What do you know about this Baphomet? I know you've looked into this. You would know a lot about that. Do you see any connections?
Well, I mean, yes, if Bad Bunny is a cross-dresser, then that would make sense alchemically, and someone mentioned the alchemical wedding, and so yeah, that does go back to the Middle Ages. And so this, what you're looking at, is the pan of everything. So he is beast and man. He is pointing towards heaven and towards earth. He is man and woman. So I should say, because it's got boobs and a phallus right there. And see that mercurial phallus sticking up with the two snakes right there?
Yeah, that's the fruit of the tree of the garden.
Yeah, so that's the Caduceus of Hermes there, and it's also on the back of this Kenneth Grant book.
Oh,
Cult of the Shadow. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he calls it the Ob and the Odd. So these are the twin serpents. And this goes back to Kundalini, sex magic, the power of the climax, and the electromagnetic energies that happen there. Let's see, you've got moon and sun. You've got the flame of knowledge at the top, and that would be the same flame that the Statue of Liberty holds, right?
Yeah.
That
Well,
also
they thought the
became the medical symbol.
The Caduceus, yes.
Yeah, Caduceus.
Caduceus,
Well, they thought the alchemist symbolism of the dark side, the mercury and the sulfur and all this would combine the spinal cord and rise to the top and make the mind the ram mind for Aries. It seemed to be a perversion of the original Templars thing, where it's like the original Baphomet was the three-faced god, which is technically the secret face of Muhammad. The book that Jordan Maxwell quotes, Marciata, I think they say Baphomet Tema of Ab, the double generative force, ties into the hermaphroditic aspect of what Jamie was saying.
The Lady Gaga, the blue dress, right? I was looking it up right now, and it like symbolism, what it could mean. And it says the Santa Moretti in Mexico folk Catholicism. The blue lady represents the holy death associated with wisdom, science, and education, often invoked for healing and protection. And then when you go to the song that they were performing together, it was called Die with a Smile. This song spent one final moment with a loved one, emphasizing that enduring love makes the end of the world feel peaceful. So it's kind of like bringing on this travesty or new life-changing event of somehow that they may try to, whether it's weather, whether it's a nuclear war, or the threat of these constant turmoil within ourselves.
They show this wedding cake, which I don't know if there's any symbolism to that wedding cake. It looks different than a normal wedding cake.
The shape of a wedding cake actually goes back to that festival that I was talking about. They're a key to sacred marriage rituals. So the tiered wedding cake is actually a tiny ziggurat, which is the temple where these things would take place.
The wedding cake is also they would feed it to the serpent in ancient Egypt.
And then what happened after the wedding cake? And then he just fell backwards, and the people caught him after he fell backwards.
He's falling into the sea of people.
And then what happened after that? They were very happy that the white rabbit, that's when the outage thing happens after it. And he has a song called Blackout. I didn't see any symbols of Ishtar. That kind of looks like a circumpunct, but not really, because there's like two circles.
It could be an Atlantis symbol, the inner circle with the three rings or whatever.
The Plato Atlantis map. And then he drinks the. No, I'm just joking.
Well, I mean, that is a symbol for, if you look at have you ever pulled up the chemicals symbol? It looks like a bunny.
The molecular structure, yeah.
That's the word, Courtney. Thank you. Molecular structure.
There's like a door poster right behind him too. Two doors opening to a Soviet crest.
Oh yeah, interesting.
Star.
Yeah. What does it say?
The symbol of Rome.
Yeah, if you pull it up, I mean, it's almost like it has the two ears. Yeah, there you go. The OO, the N, and it's a CH2, and an OH.
The bunny.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah,
that's literally the Bad Bunny.
Bad Bunny, yeah.
Bad Bunny.
With Ricky Martin here, got anything on that?
Banana Republic.
But they did pay homage in this Super Bowl as well, because it to like that 1998 to 2001 era, because they also had Backstreet Boys, one of the commercials with T-Mobile, and it's almost like this nostalgia that they're trying to reinforce on people. Maybe that's what gets people back to the programming, right? Of like having the nostalgia things, these events that like channel our brains back to like just conformance.
I was watching the TPUSA one with you guys too. And I'm going to be doing this paper from Michael Aquino. So let's connect the Satanism to TPUSA. Michael Aquino did a paper called PSYOP to Mind War, which is what we're watching tonight, PSYOP and a Mind War. And the co-author is Colonel Paul E. Valley, who also went on to become one of the founders of TPUSA. So
what?
What? Wait, what's the co-author's name?
Paul E. Valley, Commander Paul E. Valley.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It seems like all those Phoenix people, because that's what I was talking about, Info Technologies and Heldron. Earl Bryan was Phoenix, and he's also a CIA under Reagan or some shit.
So then look up his career, and I think he was a reporter, and then he went on to found TPUSA.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Your book, Courtney, you do talk about collective of people signing up after the Charlie Kirk assassination, using TPUSA as a onboarding for something that is.
I do. And I think they're using the religious component as a huge on-ramp to do it. But I do think that there's a bigger agenda, even bigger than that. I think it's part of building these smart villages.
So Jamie came with the heat, like always. Paul E. Vallely,
Wow.
Vietnam War, probably with Michael Aquino, and then right here was part of the leadership of Turning Point, seated at the advisory board.
You know that Charlie was he was like on the advisory board of the the Council for National Policy too.
Interesting.
Kid Rock was at TPUSA, right? So let's just like bring it back to Epstein and everything that's been coming out. They pulled up an old song from Kid Rock from a song called Cool Daddy Cool, where some of the lyrics say, young ladies, I like them underage. See, some say that's statutory, but I say it's mandatory. So there is your conservative rock hero at TPUSA.
Yeah.
Well, he recently did this thing with Benny Johnson and RFK Jr., and they're on like a Masonic checkered floor. I don't know where they are, but they did all these photo ops, and it's like literally a black and white, like Masonic checkered floor.
Well,
Yeah.
Benny Johnson's a fake conservative because he platformed hate not too long ago with a big old, Christian stamp that Andrew and Tristan are cool with Benny Johnson. So watch out for fake people, but everybody on this panel I love. I love Clint, Donut, Thomas,
Aww.
Courtney.
Hey, we love you.
Yeah, we love you. Thank you, Jamie. Tell everybody where to go and where to look out for. Thank you so much for hopping on the Super Bowl ritual.
Yeah, it was really fun. You can go to my channel, youtube.com, Jamie Hanshaw, and also Jay Dyer, his own YouTube channel. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with that. And on Rockfin, I'm also there, and see me on Twitter.
Shout out to Jay. Thank you, Jamie. Have a great night.
All right, thank you guys. Have fun. Bye.
The media companies, like the advertising agencies, to get people into a trance so they would purchase their product because commercials were abrupt. So the way that the commercials now are in the long rituals, the ritual has to have a tempo and a pace. It is synchronized as a ritual, and then after the big Super Bowl ritual, which is like the climax, then the next commercial I think is the most important, whatever it says. And last year it says that the internet's going out. So it was a Verizon commercial, and it says something about the blackout, and I think the blackout has something big to do with this year's ritual. Books contain the information, TV gets you involved in it. This was written before social media. Man now lives in a global-sized village and is returning to the values and perceptions of a pre-literate culture. Marshall McLuhan even predicted that in the future, people were going to start grunting and not speaking clearly. And that's what's happened with emojis. They're using musicians and artists to portray the new technologies that are coming out, which is the robots. That's why I think they're going to have the robot sex for the fertility rite ritual. These are Ishtar fertility rites. They're sex magic rituals. The symbolism's all there with Katy Perry writing Ishtar and all that. Ishtar has owl feet. She's associated with the owl, and this is the superb owl. And it's connected to fertility rites. The ancients would do these fertility sex magic rituals. So the fertility rites that go down back in the ancient days to charge the orgone energy of the field so the crops grow and all that. So these are fertility rites. And it's introducing the new technology, just like we were showing here with Bad Bunny, with the Tesla bots, or at the Grammys, they're showing the quantum computers. Any technology gradually creates a totally new human environment. By Plato's time, the written word had created a new environment that had begun to detribalize man. Previously, there was memorized poems. The poets provided specific operational wisdom for all the contingencies of life. Now we're going back to the poets, or these artists, Bad Bunny, Cardi B, rapping about the aroused genitalia. Those are the poets of today. The power of the arts to anticipate future social and technological developments by a generation and more has long been recognized. The arts were a way to show people, like a radar system, of what's coming to prepare them. While the arts as radar feedback provide a dynamic and changing corporate image, their purpose may not be to enable us to change, but rather to maintain an even course toward permanent goals. So when we're seeing these celebrities perform, they are showcasing the new technologies and preparing the world for it. They're even preparing the world for the masks. Bad Bunny, before the lockdowns, he was wearing the lockdown masks. Then it happens. Or another South Korean pop band, they showed the blue screen of death right before the blue screen of death happened. So they're showing you what's going to happen before it happens in the technology. That was a nice kiss. How are you doing today?
Good. How you guys doing?
I'm doing great. Happy Super Bowl Sunday to you.
Happy sports ball.
Sir. Oh, I love this. You know, I love the sports ball. I'm a reformed man.
Yes, and for people who don't know, back in the old days, when you would watch the Super Bowl rituals through your YouTube, you were watching Isaac Weishaupt's breakdowns, the Illuminati Watchers breakdowns. I mean, you probably kicked off the whole conspiracy world with these Super Bowl rituals.
Yeah, and you know, I'm going to give my credit where credit's due to all the red pill daddies before me, and Freeman Fly was the guy who got me really down this track of looking for symbolism regarding the occult and ritual magic and so on. And you know, and you guys know my journey. We've done so many shows together now. My journey is basically going from Bill Cooper's Behold a Pale Horse to Bill Cooper's video lectures. Because I remember I bought a DVD. This is back in 2003. I bought a DVD set with a guy. I found one other guy who was into this crazy stuff in 2003. We were talking about Bill Cooper. I was like, holy crap, you read the book too? And he's like, yeah, man. And we went halvesies on this DVD set of lectures that he had on his website. It was like $120 at the time. It was too outrageous. So we split it and burned copies. Then I got into David Icke, and David Icke was the guy who was really putting it all together in some of the more wild, you know, lizard people type talk. And then I started blogging in 2011. Then I found Freeman Fly, and I liked where he took things because it made a lot of sense, where he was taking this idea of the ideas of the ritual, the high profile ritual, and getting mass energy and mass attention and sort of creating their own realities out of it. And that's what really got me into it back then. You know, the rest is sort of history of me trying to understand it and write the books and doing the YouTube videos and all that stuff.
So with Bad Bunny being the Super Bowl halftime show performance, this is chosen for a reason. Can you tell us what you found with the alchemical symbols tattooed on Bad Bunny? Why did they pick him? The whole transhumanism agenda that's going on, the transmutations of these secret occult orders connected with Kenneth Grant, the OTO, Aleister Crowley, and all that. Tell us, why did they choose Bad Bunny?
Mm-hmm. The whole thing is part of this revelation of the method, as you know, with the Epstein files being dropped. Like, this is going to some next level of revelation. Like, for instance, there's an email from the Barclays CEO Jess Staley to Jeffrey Epstein, and he is talking to Epstein about how, and I'm going to paraphrase, I can get you the file number if you really want to like dig it into this. I put it on my recent video I did on YouTube about the Olympics opening ceremony symbolism towards the end. He says something to the effect of like, hey, Jeff, you know why America is the way it is and it's not worse like some of these other places for guys like us, these, you know, us elites? It's because Jay-Z has basically influenced all these people to be, you know, chasing cars and women and silly stuff. And he basically calls Jay-Z out for it. And Jay-Z, of course, being the guy who runs the halftime show and Rock Nation, of course, one of the biggest record labels there is. Bad Bunny, he's being chosen, and you could see it right off the rip when he started out. He started out 2016. He was 22. He gets his first record contract, and immediately he's got features with Cardi B and Drake, you know, and Carol G. She's like a big like Colombian, you know, singer. But he immediately gets all these collabs, and that right there tells you, because like usually people got to sort of put a few years in before they can get these sort of collabs going.
Right, and Cardi B right now is all over the sports predictions. Will she be there? But what's interesting is that you broke down the tattoo and how it's connected to the magnum opus and the great work. I think you even broke down, because I've been watching your Bad Bunny breakdowns like for years.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, let's talk about it. And you're right, Bad Bunny was I've always been intrigued by the pop culture side of conspiracy. So I've been watching all these silly award shows and VMAs and Grammys. And it's saying I watch these things, I hate them. Like they're so long and drawn out. In fact, I remember when I watched, I think it was the Oscars, the Will Smith slap, because I had taken a break. I had gone upstairs because I was doing something. And I remember I heard it. I said, what? And I looked out from the bedroom. I looked down the stairs of the TV. I said, you got to be kidding me. And, you know, that was like a crazy moment, right? So things happen at these events that are important. Bad Bunny has been showing us symbolism of all seeing eyes, basically, at every performance ritual award show that he's done since he came out in 2017. And, you know, I've been covering every single one of them because it's blatant, right? And he shows you the third eye pineal gland, but specifically, he was in a Rolling Stone article and they took photos of his tattoos, and he only started getting the tattoos around 2022. He had no tattoos. Then all of a sudden he's got a ton of tattoos in 2023. They take these photos and he's got on his stomach a handful of really interesting tattoos. And the most interesting is the alchemical rebus. And this is the idea of the perfected hermaphroditic entity. And this is in the occult understanding of the history of the world. They think that we started out as the perfected hermaphrodite, meaning we were sort of a unisex being. It gets weird. It goes back to Adam Karlam from the creation story in Kabbalah. They think that we can go back to that. Like that's the plan. This is one of the pursuits of alchemy, right? Which is like the black arts. This goes back to ancient Egypt and the Western Hermeticism that goes back to Hermes and Thoth. And like, it gets really, you could do an entire hour show on each of these things I'm mentioning. The ideas of alchemy seem to be what we find in symbolism in almost all these events. And the reason why you see all the symbols and why they're doing all this crazy stuff, the reason they do it is for a couple reasons. One is to garner energy from the viewer, and another is to complete what they call the great work. Every occultist knows about this. This is like the plan. When you look at the alchemical rebus, it's the combination of the red king and the white queen. In fact, you saw this in, I believe it was Westworld. Was that where I saw it? Oh man, all my pop culture conspiracies are blurring in my head. But yeah, it's the combination of the male and female together, which we all know as the goat with the bobs, right? We got the goat with the bobs with the alchemical messages on his forearms, the solve and coagula, which means to dissolve and then rebuild, to coagulate back together as the perfected being. Pretty much all of the occult arts are into this kind of thing. This goes back to the Rosicrucians, right? They got the alchemical wedding. Ultimately, what I believe to be a sex magic ritual is the idea of opposing polarities coming together. And that's what he's got on his stomach there. And you also notice he's got some interesting tattoos. The rainbow and the butterfly, and we kind of know what those mean, right? The butterfly symbolic of the Project Monarch, or, you know, the traumatic abuse program that Kathy O'Brien asserts happened in Transformation of America. Which I believe. I doubts about it for a moment in time, and now after reading all these Epstein files, I was like, "Oh, they're really doing all this. That's crazy. I can't believe this is happening." Okay, and Kubrick was trying to expose all of this. I talked about this for many years, and it's become more crystal clear to me as I read through the files that Kubrick knew what they were doing, and he was exposing it. And I'm now on board that I think that they took him out for sure. The rainbow symbolism is another MK Ultra symbol that Kathy O'Brien and others claim is part of the traumatic abuse, right? You take the victim and you force them to go over the rainbow. It's the idea of disassociating and entering into an altered state. Officially, the MK Ultra CIA program, they claimed this was a plan to get people to do assassinations of political leaders. That's what they claim. That's the public thing of like, oh, we were really just trying to do this and it's for national security, but it's not. That's not the truth. That's not the whole truth. Much like the Epstein files, they've destroyed most of the documentation. But if you read through the books, it's very clear to me that they were using this for sex stuff, but they were doing it for other things. They wanted to control the minds of the masses, which is what they do with pop culture. And that's what this is all about with the symbolism of these kinds of events like the Super Bowl. And Saturn always plays into this stuff. So Bad Bunny's got a tattoo of Saturn as well on his, I think it's on his arm. I'm not sure.
I kind of want to get your thoughts on what I think is going on with the sex magic rituals. Is usually it was probably connected to Ishtar, correct? Like a fertility type rite?
Yeah, that's one element of this, right? So if you want to get into like that aspect of it, there's this whole thing that occultists have about the goddess that you see oftentimes. You'll see Aleister Crowley called them the Scarlet Woman. And what he would do is he would take women as part of his ritual. With sex magic, for instance, it's not, the idea isn't to just have some like freaky sex and while that's fun. It's about taking the energy and the sort of dissociated state one finds themselves in during sex and using that energy as a sort of raw, powerful form of energy that a magician can use. Aleister Crowley was doing this. Jack Parsons was doing this in the Babylon workings, but it doesn't always require a female consort. You can do it by yourself, if you know what I mean. Jack Parsons was doing that the first part of his Babylon working rituals and making poor little L. Ron Hubbard watch him do it out in the desert.
That's how he got the name Jack.
Ba-da, boom. The second part of the ritual was to find after he manifested the whore of Babylon, to try to impregnate her to create the moon child. Okay. The sex magic stuff it's always about opposing polarities coming together. Again, you see this with the black and white checkered floor in Freemasonry, which is one of the things I think we're going to see at the Super Bowl halftime show, to be honest. Some kind of opposing polarity thing, probably just black and white checkered floor, because they do that all the time. You see it oftentimes. In fact, that's also in Eyes Wide Shut as well, which has the going over the rainbow symbolism with Bill Harford going into the costume shop, because he has to go over the rainbow because he has to dissociate to enter this altered realm, this other realm where the elites play, right? That's not for him. He has to go to this other dimension, this other sort of frequency to tap into, because they're doing stuff on an energetic level, right? When we talk about sex magic, we have to get rid of the idea that like, oh, they're just trying to have freaky sex or whatever. And it's like, no, it's not really what it's about.
I got to point out how awesome it is that as we're talking about MK Ultra, there was a Eli Lilly commercial playing from the Super Bowl, which is like the foundation of where they got a lot of their original drugs to do MK Ultra on.
That's right. Yeah. After Hoffman synthesized LSD, they got Lilly to crack the code to produce it for the CIA projects. Today's February 8th, and it's Eliphas Levi's birthday today, and they're doing the Super Bowl at the Levi Stadium. And I was like, oh, that's actually a really good catch, because Eliphas Levi, of course, very important magician who actually showed us what the goat with the bobs looked like. He's the guy that drew it in Transcendental Magic, which then the Church of Satan would later employ. But yeah, the idea of them using sexual elements, it's important to the ritual, because the human sexuality they believe to be the gateway to the deeper unconscious processes, because that's always what these rituals are about. It's about opening up some kind of doorway. Sometimes, like people like Kenneth Grant will interpret it as opening up a doorway to have entities like extraterrestrials come through. Some people believe that the doorway is just to the subconscious, and it's their way of sort of going internally, where you can then implant messages to your own subconscious and rewire your mind, like rewire the computer. The idea of, sex magic, it is the force that underlies all of these Western esoteric practices of alchemy and ritual magic and so on, right?
Goes into the portals. Everything is about these portals and butthole portals, like called the entrance. And the word Bob, like Babylon, Bob meaning the gate or the door or the entrance. I read this book called Closer Encounters by Reza Giorgiani.
I actually had this nearby because I need to do a video. You know how this goes, man. It's like your mind races from one thing to the other. I've got a whole chapter on this theory about the Amorphous aliens that when I wrote it, I was like, this is pretty sensational, but I got to write it down as a theory. And, because it all goes back to sacrifice and stuff like that. And I kind of lay it all out here. It's the realm of the damaged gods, which is what you're talking about, right? You're talking about butt stuff, the tunnels of Set. And we're talking about Kenneth Grant, a magician who thought that there was great power to be had on the dark side of the Kabbalistic tree of life, where the denizens lives, the Klepoth. This Klepoth, these dark entities, they call it the refuse of the system, and it's akin to the anus, right? And the waste system of the human body. So where all that leads is to, hey, let's try doing things in the butt. The tunnels of Set, they call it, where these things live. And of course, that's what we saw in Stranger Things season 5 with the Will, the openly gay character who also was the one creating the tunnels of Set in his mind that were allowing these entities to come into our world, which is exactly the Kabbalistic concepts of the Klepoth that Kenneth Grant was talking about and even advocating for. Like, these guys are kind of into some wacky stuff about whatever energy they can get, they want to harness it. Normal people, we hear this stuff and you're like, these people are crazy. And it's like, well, they're doing it. I don't know what to tell you. It seems a little nutty to me, but
that's the main thing, is that all of those are like the Klepoth is basically like the inversion of the Tree of Life. It's a very similar concept as like the Black Mass, where they're going to basically recreate an entire mass but do everything the opposite, so that is harnessing the exact opposite energy for that, like a polar energy.
Yeah, and that's important. Is this the left hand path? Antinomianism is what they call that, and it's shattering the cultural norms and being willing and open to break free from these things. And these psychopaths, they do this crazy stuff. Like, you read about the stuff in the files, and you're like, there's no way they're doing this stuff. And I'm not going to say the words because I don't know where you're going to put this.
You can
show.
say whatever, because I'll.
Oh, okay, eating human flesh and doing other things that are really horrific that you're like, no way someone would do that. But you have to understand, these people get into the darkest paths of antinomianism, and they think that you have to understand that the left-hand pathers, they believe that they can become gods. And the way you can become God is to separate yourself from the path of the consciousness of the regular sort of God. So they find themselves proving to each other how dark they can go, how like sort of, it's like dark woke, right? How dark woke are you? And be like, hey man, I not only am I like willing to do things I'm willing to do things with, and I'm willing to like eat them and all this crazy stuff. And it sounds insane, but like, that's what these emails are saying. That's why they actively suppressed it. You know what I mean? Like, they're covering it up for a reason. Like, the Epstein files is the whole, like, I'm going insane, right? Like, yeah, I know you guys are too. It's like every day I'm looking up 1,000 Epstein files, and I'm like, this is crazy, man. And this is the biggest conspiracy, not of our lifetimes, but of all time. This exposes what they're really into. And this goes back to Babylon. You're talking about Babylon and Babel. You know, Babel's gateway of the gods. They're actually trying to make commune with these gods, these bloodthirsty pagan gods.
I got a pretty strong theory that I think that Epstein kind of starts to prove out too, and that's that the last time we see a lot of these rituals, these public rituals, where they would first they do sacrifice, and then they would have public orgies, and these were state mandated. It's not like these were just like the crazy people in town would get together and they were allowed to do this, like the purge. This is literally, you have to come here and you have to bring a sacrifice. Sometimes it's a goat, depends on what the season is, what the ritual calls for. But then also your wife's got to get down here. She's got to become a ritual prostitute. Like, everyone's got to get involved in this. And the common story is that Rome and Constantine came and they were like, okay, enough of this. And they suppressed it. But really what happened is that they made it going from a public ritual that everyone took part in to now it's only for the elites. First, it was only for the military and the elites. And then over time, slowly, like, more and more people are allowed to get in through different angles. But essentially, the exact same rituals continue from Canaanite rituals and the Phoenician rituals. Like, they continue right now. It's no longer public. It's now private.
Totally, dude. And you wrote a whole book on the some Archimedes stuff, right? I mean, you are writing it?
Version like 0.3 is done. I'd love to get your feedback on it, but yeah, it's been done in a few different forms.
Man, you better hustle that thing along. People are starting to wake up to it now. Going back to ancient Rome, and that's why we have football on Sunday. That's why it's Super Bowl Sunday, because it has to go to the sun god, the Sol Invictus. And this goes back to, in ancient Rome, they had the cult of Dionysus, and they were doing crazy sex orgies and sacrificing humans. You know what I mean? Like,
and eating their gods.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is all stuff they used to do. Like, the Aztecs would sacrifice the top of the temple, and we've been led to believe that people have evolved past this, and I think society as a whole has. But like you're saying, there's a group of these elites that have not. They think that they're really making contact with gods, and they want to give their best, and this is a way they can retain power and wealth and all those things.
The topic of Babylon Gateway, these different portals, I got two questions. During the lockdowns, they covered everyone's face with a mask, and you showed how Bad Bunny was doing predictive programming with the mask symbolism before the lockdowns happened. So it was getting into the public's minds before everyone accepted it to be. And that is what happens with what Marshall McLuhan was talking about, the artists and the poets, because Bad Bunny, Cardi B, they're the poets of today, are showing us the new technologies to prepare people. It's like a priming. And they covered everybody's face during the lockdowns, but they showed everybody like the booties. Everywhere was just the booties.
You cover one end of the digestive tract and you open up the other end.
Have you ever read anything with Kenneth Grant, Aleister Crowley, like instead of inverting stuff where they like block something.
Like the lines of chi in a body, like in yoga and stuff, there's an idea of sort of opening up the chakra points so they align and you can release the kundalini energy from the base of the spine, which is down by, you know, down by the tunnels of Set. And then then the kundalini spirit can rise up to the head, up to the brow chakra. I haven't heard anything specific about like, hey, they should close the mouth and open up the beehole. I haven't heard anything like that specifically. That's an interesting idea. I'd have to like think about that. That's curious.
Think
It's
about
almost
it.
like
It's weird. It's out there, but you know,
Yeah.
who else are we going to ask that to? I got to ask them.
I love it. That's good though.
The Kundalini thing, there's always inversions. One thinks the mind is God, the consciousness. The other thinks the bottom end is God. And so the desires, the Baphomet has the caduceus coming out of the sexual organ because they think that the desire of sex and money and all that, they think that's God. The other end of the spectrum is the mind is God, the consciousness, which is ridiculous.
If you're talking about Eastern philosophy, so chi and breath is very important. And if you're covering up your entire respiratory organs on your face, that is going to retard your health in a lot of ways. So they do know that you need oxygen and it's like a holy thing. So by cutting off of this source of life, that is a very, black magical thing to do, in my opinion.
But I want to ask you some Twin Peak stuff because of what I've read in Reza Giorgiani's Closer Encounters book. He went over how Bob is like Babylon, like the gateway or the portal. But it dives deep. It's a big book. In Twin Peaks, there is this owl, and here's the owl cave in Twin Peaks, and on someone's tongue, it says, beware of the owls. And this guy, Bob, turns into an owl, and that is like a short word for Bob or, Babylon or a gateway. With the owl, the Super Bowl is the superb owl. The Illuminati has the owl of Minerva, the Minerval degrees, the owls looking like Lam or the gray aliens when you shave. This is an owl that was shaved without feathers, looking like a gray alien, sort of. And then you got the camouflage as well, which is a big invisibility cap of how these secret networks sort of work as camouflaging through conversion and religions. Tessarian talks about it quite a bit. What's your thoughts on this and just the whole owl thing? What do you think it is? Even Ishtar, we see all the Ishtar symbols being associated with the owl. Too.
Mm-hmm. The owls are not what they seem, right? I think it is linked. I think that, so obviously the owl represents Minerva, right? The wisdom goddess, and Ishtar is affiliated to these things as well. Ishtar is associated with owls and Lilith even translates into the screeching owl. And of course, the owl you see at the Bohemian Grove with the cremation of care ceremony, which is also about human sacrifice as well.
The concept of demons originated in wind gods, and because the screeching at night was like the wind would be blowing through, so then they get associated with Lilith as well, which is why like Lilith represents like the original source of magic, especially dark magic, and would eventually get called demons, but not at this point.
David Lynch is very much, it's fascinating because the reason I'm so obsessed with Twin Peaks is because Mark Frost was researching occult literature, like that's a fact. And he puts a lot of occult ideas into the show. And then David Lynch directed most of it, like all of season 3, the big episodes in season 1 and 2. The ideas that you see there are David Lynch being able to perfectly pull ideas from the unified field and project them, which speaks to the subconscious of the masses as we watch it. It's really sort of like a ritual that we kind of keep repeating, right, as you watch it. And that's kind of what the show is all about. And I'm not going to like plot spoil anything, but you could argue that for the people that have seen all of season 3, the screeching owl of Lilith is very similar to someone else who does like a very prominent scream on the show. There's a lot of ideas about what's going on in Twin Peaks, and that's why I'm writing this book. I did the 55 episode deep dive already on my Patreon, but I'm writing a book about it. I should have it done this year. I'm hoping by summer, but who knows? With everything going on, it's crazy.
Well, I appreciate you hopping on. Tell everybody where to go. Then we're going to go to the commercial.
So I've got a link tree, allmylinks.com/IsaacW, 2 A's, double awesome, right? Because a lot of people misspell it. If you're new and you want to check out the show, I've got a YouTube that I just started rebuilding at Occult Symbolism, all one word. That's where I'd like you to go because I'm really trying to make this YouTube thing happen this year. So, and thanks again for having me on. I appreciate it. I'll see if I can pop back in here in a little bit.
Please do. I'll have all those links down below. I'll go post them as well in the Discord party room, and feel free to hop in there. We're going to go to a commercial break. I'm going to fix the TV because it turned off, and we'll be right back. We're here with Isaac Weishaupt, Illuminati Watcher.
Just buy something. Just buy something. From Paranoid American. Just buy something. Just buy something. From Paranoid American. Get some merch, buy some art. Click that link, add to cart. Say it back, need that print. Nod your head, give consent. Buy a comic, 3 or 4. Think this thought, I want more. Buy a sticker from the store. Think this thought, I want more. Just buy something. Just buy something. From Paranoid American. Just buy something. Just buy something. From Paranoid American.
There's a podcaster, My Maria, who's friends with Paranoid American and Project Cheney, and she put together the story of this missing person, and this went viral. So she's the girl who put it on in the freaking New York Times, and everyone's sharing this out. So I want to give a shout out to My Maria because she's the one who put this together and found it, but she got no credit for it. But this lady is missing in Tucson, Arizona. And this is the lady's daughter, and she's a high-level news reporter. And she came out on the news and said something that's exactly in the Silence of the Lambs. Let me play that real quick.
She is full of kindness and knowledge. Talk to her and you'll see.
Catherine is very gentle and kind. Talk to her and you'll see.
I don't know if you guys seen it earlier, but Mac Hollins, who plays for the Patriots, he showed up today in like an inmate suit, almost handcuffed, with a Hannibal Lecter mask on, and it said range 13 on the back. I just thought that was an interesting, like how you guys were talking about some of the symbolism, and maybe that is putting on this whole like Civil War thing that they're talking about and this criminality of it.
Oh, wow. Interesting. And then that most recent with Hannibal Lecter's viral with the missing lady. And also the heads and tails goes back to Ishtar. It goes in a sense because it goes back to the Owl of Athena, which on the coinage on the front was Athena's head. On the back, it was the owl. So that's where we get heads and tails from.
Right.
The Hannibal Lecter symbolism was just like, I'm showing up to eat the competition, or is there something more to that?
Well, he's wearing a red jumpsuit. He doesn't really explain it. It just went viral as like he's going into the game. Like they all like wear like dress up, right? You'll see like the players in fancy suits and all this top stuff. And he comes out and he's known for being hippy dippy. Like he walks around barefooted. That's kind of like his thing. So it was interesting that he came up with the all ice stuff going on and Bad Bunny being there. And then the number 13, doesn't that represent murder? So like maybe he knows, man. A lot of people are saying that the conspiracy money is on the Patriots and bring back something like a 9/11 event, right? Like last time this all initiated was in 2001 when after 9/11 when they started their reign and started their championship run. So kind of interesting that they're going back to them, especially because this is a rebuild, right? They had Tom Brady, they had this team, everything's gone, and now they have a brand new Drake May, who is their new Tom Brady, second year, just like Tom Brady, taking them to the playoffs in his second year, the last person to do that since Tom Brady. So it's kind of like the correlation together.
This is Pukey Pete. This is horrible home video Justin Parker, but in his real life form.
Yeah, I don't normally get on camera as myself. It's not typical.
Justin does all the graphics and art. He does the covers that make me look so cool. And I'm even wearing the original during the lockdowns. He made all these stickers. Oh, look at that. He created the Donut Uzi sticker, the top seller. We appreciate you. I appreciate you so
Hell
much.
yeah. Look at this puppet I made there, Donut. Check that out. What up, Donut? What's cracking, Donut?
That's sick. That's sick. So how are you doing?
I'm good. Recently had a little problem with YouTube. That's been resolved. I've been demonetized, but I still got my channel. That's the good news. Donut, you think there's going to be any beef jerky commercials this year?
I don't know. What do you think?
I think we might get a Jack Links commercial, little beef jerky related to a certain gentleman in relation to Jeffrey Epstein. So, you know, the whole beef jerky thing that was pretty recent. What was it? The other day they came out with that, thinking that it might be eating people. Look into that. Yeah, it pops up in the emails like some 60 or 70 times, something like that. Very peculiar wording. My biggest question that I have with this recent release of files is just what else is going on? If they gave us that, something big has to be going on that we are not seeing. Like, this got to be a smokescreen.
And why did they release this during this Super Bowl?
Yes,
like,
right now.
Everybody's talking about it. Everyone is, you know what I'm saying? It's freaking weird. There's a reason why, for sure. Beef jerky and the Epstein files connected to eating people.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Cream cheese or something. And
oh, yeah, cream cheese, baby. That's another one.
Alleging that there was human meat in the cream cheese or some shit in the files.
From what I understood on the cream cheese thing was it was more of a joke being made that it was easier to find a good vegetable cream cheese than it was to find a baby or something like that.
Babies tasted like cream cheese because of the fermented milk or something.
Ah.
Bizarre. That's a bizarre statement.
Alephus Levi, who created the Baphomet, his birthday's today, February 8th. This February 8th ritual going down at Levi Stadium.
Nice.
Cardi B fell twerking on a Tesla bot. The Seahawks logo, walk, waka, walk, transformation ceremonial mask. This is some interesting imagery of where the Seahawks logo comes from. Just thinking about the Patriots versus the Native Americans, right?
Yeah.
So there seems to be something there. Clint, what do you think about this? Like right when you see it, you probably
well, I
know
mean, they've got these different algorithms that people are thinking on, and they make the natives think that America's bad. But when the New World Order took over America and stuff, early 1900s, late 1800s, that basically all the treaties were trampled over, and that the treaties of the tribes were supposed to be protected by the Supremacy Clause of the Constitution. And that the Supremacy Clause is supposed to override any executive order. Basically, they took away the natives' land from executive orders, which don't trump treaties. There's a big problem with, you know, the hierarchy of law. They've got everybody so brainwashed where it's like you'll see Marxists and communists talking about their civil rights and shit, and they don't even know civil rights are constitutional rights. And they'll sit there and they just all spew Weishaupt's doctrine and have no idea who Weishaupt even is. That there's this huge cultural thing that's happening that everybody thinks is new, but it's like a mental disease, which is the same disease of the mind, which was, you know, dominating the minds of the people in France before the French Revolution.
So the Hamatsa is a pivotal, complex ceremonial dance and secret society, people of the Pacific Northwest coast. And then you got Billie Eilish also in the news for the ICE rant that she did at the Grammys. If you saw, they rang the bell 3 times, Sean Chris. Is that a normal thing for them to ring the bell 3 times? Because the 3 gavel strikes, the 3 strikes, you're out, the first 3 steps.
That's Catholic Mass too. In transubstantiation, I believe that there's the bell rings 3 times.
Is that where it's coming from?
That's what turns the blood into wine or wine into blood, whatever it is.
3 knocks on the door.
Yeah, I've never seen them do that before. This bell is not really part of their. More looks like a college thing. Usually, you see stuff like that in college. So it's kind of interesting they focused in on that because it's not a normal thing that they focus in on normal games. So it is enhanced and placed there for a reason because you wouldn't normally see that.
Now I got my Fruit Loops here because this is going to be a very fruity Super Bowl. So prepare, but we're going to counterbalance that with Kid Rock. So we're going to be very masculine as well with Kid Rock, ball with the ball.
He does drink Bud Light though, so
what's up with that? Yeah.
There's 11 players in each team, which is 22. The field itself, it's 2 squares, and the square being circled has the same area. The players against each other, the 22 major arcana of tarot cards. It's all a very intricate system. Each sport, baseball, soccer, 11 versus 11, different symbolic numbers in the game itself. Even cricket, the length of the bat, the width, 72 stitches in the baseball. It's a very Kabbalistic game.
Yeah, 72 is for God. Well, you also got Walter Camp, who's the Skull and Bones and the father of American football.
And established most of the rules in the NFL, built off the back of Walter Camp. And he was also in Skull and Bones, a Freemason. Like, it kind of starts it all. You know, those Masons, if we ever get you, you crazy Masons. But they're usually involved in a lot of this stuff, especially in the early times. Paranoid had all the breakdowns of, like, all these mob ties with these NFL owners and how they were using this to maybe launder money and build their status.
The NFL, this is based on Paranoia magazine articles from the mid-90s. I had like an old collection of them. And there was a really great issue of it that basically broke down the origins of the NFL was created as a money laundering, gambling enterprise. And everything was built around it that way. And if you look at it now, it's also what still provides its lifeblood. Of course, it's a big spectacle and everyone tunes in, but it's also such a big spectacle because think about how much money is on this game, how many advertisements we've already seen for gambling and putting money on this game.
This was advertising for betting on it as well.
Right there, yeah, right as we're making the point right there. Yeah. So aside from it being a sacrificial ritual, and like it used to be this blood ritual, and it reenacts battle, right? That's probably the coolest thing about the Super Bowl is that this battle that it's reenacting is that people would die on that battlefield, and whoever won the battle would inherit the battlefield, and that would become where they plant their crops. And usually because of the iron in the blood and all the bloodshed, that becomes incredibly fertile. So now your agricultural ritual will provide you a great place to grow crops because you've just fertilized the soil. So it's self-evident. Now, it's the opposite now because think about how much money they spend on that grass, on that green, to make it just absolutely perfect. And they're not growing anything out of it. They're just putting this big spectacle on. But what happens is that people fly in and they spend money and they buy merch and they buy advertising placements. So even though it's not like a literal one-for-one agricultural ritual, it's still people sacrificing their entire lives. These people are growing up as children that are going to dedicate their lives to this game. So there's still this like sacrificial aspect to it that brings in money more so than agriculture, but money is just like the new universal concept.
And shout out to NDS up in here. We got over 100 people tuning in. Make sure to smash that like button, even though it's private. But in the Rumble description down below, go join the private party room. Thank you, Max, for sharing this. This is the 322 Skull and Bones right before the stadium collapse.
Tom Clancy book, right? The Sum of All Fears between Soviet Union. I think something happens, altercation with some nuclear bombs. A lot of people are connecting that with this Super Bowl to detonate a nuclear weapon at the Super Bowl like that.
Okay, so that was an actual book before it was a movie?
Yep. Tom Clancy.
Tom Clancy, it was basically a version of like an actual CIA research program that probably happened that they just fictionalized. That's what pretty much most of these Tom Clancy novels are about. It's similar to legends about Stanley Kubrick, is that Stanley Kubrick did so much research about top secret photography about the black ops that the Air Force had been working on, that he approached the Air Force and he wanted to use some of their insider knowledge of when he was making the Dr. Strangelove movie, and they told him no. So he ends up doing all this research and he basically puts together a very accurate rendition of what they had as the top secret bomber at the time. By doing that, he impressed the intelligence agencies to now they're coming to him as a subject matter expert. And it's pretty much exactly how the Tom Clancy dynamic worked, is that he came out with Red October, and there was all these intelligence agents that were so impressed by how much accuracy he had in Red October that then they kind of start inviting him in to give talks and start, like, I think they paid him like 500 grand to come and be like a guest of honor at some CIA functions. So he kind of, by just knowing how good and how well the operation worked, they kind of make him like an honorary member. I guess in the occult version of that, it's almost like when Manly Palmer Hall, he kind of got like an honorary Masonic degree, I believe. When you get to like 33rd, that's when they give you this honorary degree. So it's like a very similar concept to that.
Oh, interesting. And here's some symbolism of the ritual that's going down. We see the Levi Stadium. We already broke that down, but the Green Day, you see how it's the pink and blue? That's the symbol of the trophy that's going on. And we all know what the pink and blue is. It goes into transhumanism.
What up? What up? All right, I'm switching rooms.
It's great to see you. You sound great. You look great.
Thank you. Thank you. I had some technical difficulties. Oh, man, I was supposed to sign in.
Oh, no. No. Like this video for Maverick.
Every year we got, the Super Bowl. You guys know it's one big energy harvesting ritual. Because every year is something, right? If you notice, every year we have, well, actually right before we have the Grammys, and then right after, a week later, we have the Super Bowl. And I always find it interesting. We always have like some big celebrity dying right before these big events. So if you guys noticed, the lady from Home Alone, she just died. And then the year before that, it was the guy who actually played in The Mandalorian, and he was a former Raider. And, the Super Bowl was in the Raiders Stadium. So all these things, I noticed that these big events always have this same kind of thing. Past couple of years, they were doing the same thing. 2 years ago, it was about Taylor Swift, the Swiftie Bowl and all that stuff, right? With Travis Kelce and all that, and the numbers lining up with 13. Then the next year, it was Kendrick Lamar last year. So if you notice, the Grammys gave him a bunch of Grammys, then he goes and do the Super Bowl. Now this year, it's the same thing. Bad Bunny, he wins Album of the Year. Now he's doing the Super Bowl. So it's all these cycles, right? So we have these people that correlate with a lot of things, right? So last year, Kendrick Lamar was about race and all that stuff. This year, ICE. ICE is a big thing. Now we have Bad Bunny in the middle of doing the Super Bowl. So I find it interesting that these things kind of correlate with major events that's going on, only because they are there to harvest energy. Because they're talking about ICE being outside of the Super Bowl stadium and all this crazy stuff. I don't know if you guys heard about that, but it's pretty interesting how they line all these things up.
I think too, the way that they use Super Bowl and the Super Bowl halftime show, especially the commercials, that's like a big part of it, is that people tune in to see what the big commercials are going to be. And this is just a public version. If you ever looking at how the Bohemian Grove rituals go, right? Aside from the cremation of care, another main reason people go there for these things called lakeside talks. And the lakeside talk is when they have industry, like world-renowned professionals come and give everyone like the inside scoop, like here's what's going to be happen over the next 3 years. That's how like The Simpsons knows what's going to happen and they can write it into the script. This is how like people can make investments. They know where to move their money around, where to move their resources because of things they hear at these lakeside talks. And I think that Super Bowl and halftime show, it's kind of like the bumpkin, normal working man's version of lakeside talks. It's like, here's what's coming for the next 3 years. So like, get ready. Here's the commercials, here's the products, here's the services, and then here's the social consciousness. Here's like the social issues that you need to be concerned about. And they kind of like solidify. It's like, hey, Bad Bunny's singing about it, wearing a dress in the middle of the Super Bowl. Of course you need to care about ICE now.
Right, exactly. Great point. And that's what I mean. So it's these things that kind of correlate. Being that most people in America really don't speak Spanish. There's a lot of Spanish speakers, but for the most part, for the Super Bowl to pick him, he doesn't do any English speaking albums or whatsoever. And it's kind of odd that he wins Album of the Year. So I just find it odd. So they place these people to, piss people off and energy harvest and to distract. And another funny thing is too, the Epstein files, they're tying that into the Super Bowl because they have a bunch of survivors who have a commercial spot during the Super Bowl. And they're saying that all these files are supposed to come out because 3.5 million files were released. But now they're saying there's another 3 million files to be released that's supposed to be more salacious, more completely unredacted. So they say. But I find that's funny, too, that's going to be in the Super Bowl, too.
There's an Epstein file commercial in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. There is coming up.
That's wild. It's like in the ethos in everybody's mind. And you've been looking into these files. What are some of the strangest stuff that you found right now?
Oh man, what isn't in the files, or who isn't in the files is the question.
Did you find anything on like?
I'm not in the files.
Did you find anything?
Are you sure?
Did you find anything on the blackouts at all?
Blackouts. I'm still digging through them. I did find something with Bill Gates and Epstein that was pretty interesting that had to do with they were planning a pan. There's emails in the file showing that Bill Gates was in tandem working with Epstein, that they were planning a strain simulation, right? And this is 2017. Now, 201 Donut, so a couple
Right.
years later, they have
Skull Bones, yeah.
Yeah, so 201, Event 201, a couple years later, they have that's funded by Bill Gates, which was
Right.
the simulation.
Yes.
So that's in the files. So I thought that was very interesting. There's so much, and it all ties into everything we've been talking about for the past couple of years, because it seems like it was conspiracy theory. Now these files are out. It's like, oh, Joe Biden did die in 2019. Like, that's in the files. I'm just going by the files, you guys. That's what it says. It says Joe Biden was playing a character since he died, and some guys put on a mask and now is essentially playing Joe Biden. That's in there, and a bunch of other stuff.
Just crazy, because this came up the other night, and it was because the Super Bowl was coming up. But right before Joe Biden started looking like he was taking a downturn, and all these rumors about was he replaced, he had this little leather case that he would bring around with him. And there was speculation on if it had like the launch codes in it. Did it have some sort of like medication or like blood transfusion stuff that he needed in case something went wrong? But they all called it the football. And if you look up Joe Biden football, like this is this thing that he would carry around all the time.
Interesting.
Oh, and also ball, right? Football. Wasn't there something with Epstein's company called Ball?
Yeah, so I just did a video on that, and I find it very interesting only because they knew people like us would pick this up. Now, what's going on with the whole Ball thing, or Baal, the Baal, so here's the thing. They said that's a misprint. So they're saying that that's a duplicate of a bank statement, right? Because I found the actual bank statement, which is also in the files, verbatim, which is the same bank statement. It has the same invoice number, has the same transfer amount for $11,438. But the one that says Ball or Baal, I think they did that on purpose, because if you type it in, you go into justice.gov/Epstein, you type it in, BAAL, that document comes up. Which is weird, though, is because there's two of the same statements, one that's a misprint, one that is correct. So I think they did that on purpose, and I think that they are giving us false flag breadcrumbs to create reasonable doubt. This is why nobody has been arrested, indicted, no convictions, nothing yet, right? We have all this stuff coming out, and if we have any shred of doubt, whether the files are tampered with or anything going on with the files, that gives way to reasonable doubt, and nobody can really be convicted, because at that point, everything has to be in question. So I think they're kind of gaslighting us with the whole Ball thing, but then there's half-truths and mixed in with false files. I think that two things are true.
And then the interesting thing about the Ball, how Moloch looks. Isn't Moloch Ball, kind of?
Moloch is the ritual of sacrifice, or Molk, and then it became so closely associated with Baal or Baal that Moloch and Baal started to become synonymous. But technically, Moloch is the practice of sacrifice, and then Baal is this two-horned god.
Ball or Moloch here. It's the freaking football thing. The stand post, or like the symbol that they do during football, or down beneath here is like the soccer goal, and that's where you hit the
and I guess that makes it the net on the chest. It's like a basketball net.
Baal or Baal, it translates to Lord or owner. So that's the fertility god of like storms and whatnot during the Canaanite times. And then later on, it's synonymous with sacrifice sacrifice, so on and so forth.
Whenever you had like a little town, whatever that town was ruled by, that was their ball. Like, so there was a bunch of different balls. Like the agriculture one, the two-horned one that eventually became synonymous with just Baal, it was Baal Hammon. But then there was also Baal Zephyr, and Baal Zephyr was the storm god, the wind god. That actually ends up becoming Zeus. So you can actually trace like all these different balls, but then eventually the main ball, I think that wins out is Baal Hammon, and that's the one that biblically ends up becoming Baal.
Right. Yeah. So what's interesting about Zeus, that's actually the devil. So if you look into Pergamon Press, Ghislaine Maxwell's father had a company called Pergamon Press, which after 1946, he took over the entire scholastic textbook, making. Like, he was the guy to pretty much give us our current history, which is crazy.
And all of our book fairs in school, man, the ones that everyone got excited over, right? That was the scholastic book fair.
Yes. So Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, Pergamon Press. Now, if you look into the word Pergamon, it's actually one of the 7 churches mentioned in the Bible to where Jesus says that's the throne of Satan. So Pergamon was an altar or a temple of such where Zeus was synonymous with Pergamon and, the hill of Pergamon, which was actually the temple of Zeus, and Zeus was the devil. So it's crazy that he named his company this just like by chance, right?
Just like everything that comes out of Oxford.
Yeah, Oxford, they got the Rhodes Scholarships. Courtney!
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
I'm so happy that you're here. I got your book that I keep reading over and over again.
Yeah.
Congratulations again. Oh, there you go. There you go. Got those links down below. But when I'm looking at these rituals of the halftime show, I've been inspired by your information and seeing how they're doing some sort of connection to the 2040 agenda, this noosphere, singularity, man merging with machine.
We'll start with the article because my thought was I feel like that's where everything is going. So the article was really about this. It's known as the 666 patent. Yes, there are zeros in between. But this was a Microsoft patent, and it happened to come out in 2020. And of course, all the conspiracy theorists went nuts, and they were all called crazy, kooky conspiracy theorists at the time. But it happened to come out right around the same time that Canada put out this document. Now, they're certainly not the first to talk about biodigital convergence, but they put out a document actually titled Biodigital Convergence right around the time this patent came out and, went through what that entails. So my theory has really been and I think the Super Bowl really kind of is a great example of this. I think we are already in, but we're really moving into where the attention economy becomes part of this cybernetic organism. And I think that this patent is the linchpin. So it's what I keep talking about I did an article maybe a week or two before this on the tokenization of everything. And it's chapter 3 actually in our book. But I feel like the reason I wrote the article was because I wanted to make it, for me, it was a very uncharacteristically short article, but I wanted to make it really accessible. I think we really tried that with the book. I mean, if you see, this is actually a pretty short book with a lot of references, so it's even shorter than it looks. But yeah, so chapter 3 is all about this regulatory infrastructure that Trump is, helping to execute. I think that this is where it's going. It's really all about setting this regulatory infrastructure for cryptocurrency that migrates towards tokenization, not just of the economy, but really of everything. And if you see that patent, it's about cryptocurrency and body activity data. So it's really there's actually at Purdue University, there's a department of the Internet of Bodies. They have courses on this and a whole curriculum. And in the curriculum manual, it says your body becomes a smart home, smart in capital. Yeah, cryptocurrency system using body activity data. And so the analogy I was using for the Super Bowl is that we're already in this attention economy, but you've talked a little bit about the rituals and like the loosh, right? They're harvesting your energy. And I think there's a huge component to that. However, I think that is in some ways is actually just a operational preparation of the environment, or predictive programming, if you prefer, to usher us into where it is literally our attention that becomes part of this cybernetic organism. So our involuntary autonomic responses, our physiology becomes the credential, the proof of work in a tokenized system. I put the word unconsciously like a million times just to try and drill it into people's heads. Like it's literally like how many times you blink, like which ways you look. But I actually had a chance to look through some of these Super Bowl ads because it's like all about machines. There's, the one for Svedka vodka, like dance your bots off.
Yeah, dance your bots off. Yeah.
Yes, and it's weird. Like the drink comes out of their throat and it's red. So I guess it's cranberry or whatever, but it looks like blood.
It looks just like blood. Yeah, and I'll show that on the edit. And that chapter is great. Chapter 3, where you're going over the tokenization of all real world assets, but also we are the asset in a sense with our attention, this attention economy. Have you ever read Marshall McLuhan's work at all?
I have, and I know there are people who are huge proponents, and not to say that he didn't have some quite prescient insights, but I think it's kind of like Orwell. These people weren't warning; they were insiders, So I think he was very similar in that regard.
I was reading his book, and it went into how football or the Olympics is a ritual, and the advertisers were upset because it wasn't long enough. So it didn't have the flow of a ceremony intro and then this and that.
The advantage of coverage of sports events is they are ritualistic. The group gathered there is participating in a ritual.
And so when I'm looking at the Super Bowl, the advertisements being paced up for melodic, ritualistic purpose, like everything is all connected to that. And I think that this Super Bowl, it started off with robots, not just that one robot, but we saw Cardi B, who was just in Saudi Arabia. She was dancing with a robot for the Super Bowl, and then it like fell on her. And this went viral. And I don't think that these are mistakes, but I had such a good time reading your book, and I'm putting together like that, like documentary kind of with the smoke videos and all that.
It's so good.
It is really good. I'm really excited to share it out. But the accelerating society to collapse, to plug people in a humane into the virtual reality. Super Bowl is where the virtual reality, where people would be plugged in. We already are plugged in, like watching it right now, but eventually into the metaverse, which would become the new medium. Federal Reserve with the debt, everyone's like, oh no, the Federal Reserve, the debt's awful and evil, not knowing, and please let me know if I'm wrong about this, not knowing that, okay, let's trade one poison for another, and the new poison will be tokenizing everything backed by real world assets. But those real world assets seem to be part of the whole data harvesting and all that as well, and bringing in a new law.
There was even one of the ads, it was the him/hers ad. It was some sort of like a medical platform, and they were saying how like the rich have access to, it's the wealth is their health because they have all this predictive technology. It was really interesting because I think that's really where they're going with everything. I think that right now they're trying to do all this genomic collection. They're collecting all your biometric data. We had RFK Jr., we talked about this in the book as well. We have RFK Jr., who said that MAHA is really all about MABA, Make America Biotech Accelerate. And he said that he'd like every American to be equipped with a wearable. And why on earth would we all need to have a wearable? Except if it's the internet of wearables, that's going to be connected to the internet of everything, to the internet of bodies, and eventually to the internet of bio-nano things. And the internet of bio-nano things would, of course, make this patent much more relevant and potentially a reality. And they are talking about just tokenizing everything. And in that ad, actually, it was interesting because there was a video of like someone having their face pulled, which I'm sure.
Yeah, just like in Brazil.
Yeah, which I'm sure was like supposed to be like a facelift kind of thing, right? And I have this theory. They had an ad for Wegovy, which is like Ozempic also. And that both of those there's going to be, so there's Botox and then there's Ozempic. And I've done a lot of talking about this. There's lawsuits coming out like crazy on both of them now. Now, Botox, has been normalized for longer. I think that the publicity around Ozempic or Wegovy, those drugs is more new. However, the lawsuits are insane. The adverse reactions are insane. And I really think with the Botox that what's going on is they're programming people more so than even the plastic surgery. Although I think the plastic surgery, if you think about the history of plastic surgery, a lot of it came out of the trans movement. It was targeted to, right? And that is all about transhumanism, really, ultimately. And if you look at Botox, it freezes people's faces. And in some ways, it makes them very inhuman because they almost look like AI.
No emoting, you're right.
Exactly. And there's actually some studies that show that it mimics psychopathic behavior because part of empathy is actually is that neuromuscular coordination to be able to reflect, what you're feeling for the other person. And when that signaling gets cut off, people start to mimic psychopathic behavior. And not only that, the children of parents who use it have stunted and impaired psychological development. But what I really think it is, and I know this is probably not a popular opinion, but I think it's conditioning people for the humanoid robots. Because right now they're creating humanoid robots specifically tailored for the hospitality industry and for the therapeutic industry. So that they seem but can you imagine having a therapist who can't emote? Right? Robots don't have facial expressions. They don't show empathy on their face. They don't show sadness on their face. It's all very sterile. And I think that's a lot of where it's going. And I thought that was interesting that even in this ad, it shows that.
It lowers the bar of expectations. So if normal people all of a sudden have like a lowered ability to emote, then that means whatever the cybernetic version of that doesn't have to emote to the same level. And then at some point, it could even exceed what the expectation is. And then it becomes more realistic than an actual person would be.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it is a conditioning mechanism. I think that's exactly what's going on.
The Jeffrey files, I was looking it up. There's a lot of humanoid talking about this token economy. Elon, I want to get your thoughts on Elon tweeting out how Steve Bannon is connected to the tokenized economy with the World of Warcraft. I guess Bill Gates was removed from playing World of Warcraft. Elon saying Bannon was laundering money for evil people and just showing the World of Warcraft stuff. But that kind of goes into like the digital gold kind of.
Yeah, so I actually had it in my Epstein transhumanist conspiracy article back in August that I launched. And I have this line right here. This Epstein tie extends to Pierce's collaborations with Steve Bannon, Pierce being Brock Pierce. Of course, Brock Pierce had that company, the digital internet gaming company that Bannon ended up being the CEO of. So who employed him at his company, Internet Gaming Entertainment, in the mid-2000s, focused on virtual gold farming in World of Warcraft, with Bannon eventually replacing him as CEO. Bannon later assisted Pierce's 2022 independent U.S. Senate bid and has been involved in crypto projects alongside him. Pierce's independent political ambitions, including his 2020 presidential run, align with broader movements like the United Independents, which he actually spearheaded along with Christopher Life. Bannon has been involved with the very early crypto stuff. So, yeah. Bannon was also Epstein's media advisor.
Right.
Yeah. So
got all these pictures with them.
So it's very convenient that they've now leaked 2 hours of what was supposed to be a 15-hour documentary that Bannon was doing with Epstein. And I watched it. And interestingly enough, that kind of focal point was all on Santa Fe Institute. And I'm like, I call that one.
Yeah, you talked about.
I definitely get to say I call that one Santa Fe Institute because complexity science is the epicenter. And they said exactly what my theory was. My theory was that they were using it to manufacture the future economy, which I think is this tokenized economy.
Is that where Zorro Ranch is located?
It's close. It's not, I mean, it's also in Santa Fe, but it's not like, in the same place. It's also worth noting, and I put it in this recent article on the patent. Ghislaine Maxwell was on the board of Santa Fe. Robert Maxwell was one of the first donors to the Santa Fe Institute. So, I mean, there was a huge investment in this. Yeah, I mean, there's so much more I could say. The Epstein files are kind of crazy and have corroborated a lot of my suspicions. I mean, I barely scratched the surface. There's millions, to go through, but yeah. So I tried to put in this proof of persona some of the cultural references so that people could see how we're being groomed for this currently. And of course, I put the Black Mirror episode that I talk about all the time with people on their bikes powering the grid. Black Mirror does all these attention economy episodes, so that's very relatable. But I also brought up Netflix House, which is like the immersive experiences. And I think that's kind of, again, priming people for this attention economy where they can be monitored, and eventually they'll be either rewarded or penalized based on their autonomic responses.
So crazy. So I think that the ritual that goes down with the Super Bowl at the halftime show, I'm doing a prediction that it's going to be connected to mating with robots. It's like a fertility ritual. It sounds strange, but we brought Isaac on to explain it all, and we'll bring Jamie on later to be like, yo, this is like what's going on. And I think that it's been moving. During the last one with Kendrick Lamar, it's about the DNA and the loyalty and the genes, Sydney Sweeney jeans, and then he's wearing jeans. Like, jeans were everywhere. And I think it's like a phonetic priming, just getting this genetic like code, because that's the 2040.
Well, yeah, I mean, even that ad, it was all about, precision medicine. What is precision medicine about? It's about collecting your genomic data. And I think that's really what they're trying to build an infrastructure for, where they can use the genomic data to make predictions. That's what Project Stargate is, right? Remember Trump, the first day he comes in, he has this big announcement about Project Stargate. And I think he first motioned to Sam Altman, who muttered something I honestly don't even remember. It wasn't very memorable because he's not a doctor and doesn't have a whole lot of medical expertise and really couldn't even fake his way through it. But don't you worry, Larry Ellison came to save the day, because he had all the answers. I don't recall him having an MD either, but he did seem to have all the answers. And what was the answer? It was about precision AI medicine and how they were going to be able to do all this predictive screening based on your genomic data. Well, what do they need to collect that data first? I think that's how that goes. And then if they collect that data, imagine how that could be utilized in this tokenized society where you are, literally put into Brave New World, into a caste system based on your genomic data.
And it's all about gathering the data. So Doge, it seems nice on surface, but really it's a collection data and a rebranding of Rage.
Hire all government employees, yeah.
Fire all government employees. So what do you see happening? The agenda's for 2040, where they're going to merge man with machine. The singularity?
The singularity. Yeah. I do want to make one mention. I haven't been able to see it, but I know Turning Point is doing their thing tonight too. And I think that's going to be like a dialectic. I don't think that's right.
Absolutely.
I think it's going to have a very MAGA coat on the very same thing, in my opinion. It's just going to be cloaked in very different colors, if you will, the red, white, and blue covering.
So what we're going to do is we're going to watch that dialectic, right? It's the like left and right, the galvanizing. You got this Super Bowl, which is about anti-ICE. Then you're going to have the Turning Point one with Kid Rock, who's a Bohemian Grove member, which has the big owl. TBN also putting it on. A bunch of different companies are putting it on, but the TBN is interesting symbolically because they got like the British Empire is their logo.
Well, to answer your question, where do I think? So 2045 is we're in 2040, the singularity is nearer, as Ray Kurzweil says, and I think we're going to see a lot of shifts way earlier. I really think that we're going to have glimpses. And we have the movies, like, talk about predictive programming. It's insane. I've watched several recently that were all, about AI. I saw Mercer, which was like an AI judge, Arco the other night, which was very interesting. It was cartoonish, and it was produced by Natalie Portman. I don't know what year the kid is from, but he travels back in time to 2075, which I thought was interesting that they chose 2075 because that's a very significant year for the UN. That's actually right, they do those letters to the future from the future. And 2075 is when they have a lot of milestones that they're trying to hit. So I thought that was, I don't know if there's any correlation there. I just thought it was interesting that there was a lot of signaling to climate change and a lot of the UN type of narrative. So it's entirely possible. But I think that their goal is to get to the singularity where we're already seeing the swarm AIs start to surface through this molt book. Right? Have you guys seen that? Right?
The lobsters?
The lobsters. And I actually have not gotten this article out yet, but I'm drawing a parallel for how, because Jordan Peterson talked about lobsters.
Yeah.
Lobsters and the hierarchy. And I do have an article I'm working on this, because I think there was some kind of predictive programming going on there. And really, this is to prepare us for the swarms. This is the lobsters are creating this kind of swarm emergence kind of theory where we're going to see certain AIs come to this, rise up as leaders. It's kind of creepy. I've been watching a little bit of this. Yeah, the Clawbot and the Moltbot.
Peterson is from Harvard, the same position as Timothy Leary, I believe.
Yes.
So it's two different dialectics as well, if I'm using that word right.
Yeah, yeah.
We got chaos and order. Chaos, and that's his name of his book, but chaos being Timothy Leary, order, clean your room being Peterson.
Yep.
And he's the lobster guy. Yeah. And so this movie's called Mercer.
So no, this movie, so I saw a couple of movies. One was Mercer. That was about the AI judge. But the one that I'm talking about, where it's way in the future, that one is Arco, and it's a cartoon. But what's so interesting about it, where I was going with the singularity, it's very interesting about it, is that the 2075 future, robots kind of run the show. This is Arco. The rainbows, it's a lot of symbolism. The semiotics are pretty intense. Robots kind of control everything. The little girl is basically raised by a robot. And then in the future, beyond that, again, they don't say what year it is, but the boy who travels back in time, it's all humans again, but the humans are superhuman. So they have, I don't want to ruin it for people, but they have powers, and so you have to wonder, what happened to the robots? How come they're not there anymore? And how did the humans become they're almost interdimensional? They travel through time. I don't think that's giving too much away, but they travel through time. And so it's and they have free energy. That's a big concept in the future. But I think it's interesting because when you hear the concepts of the fourth industrial revolution, which we're supposed to be in right now, and we're moving into the fifth industrial revolution, the big wig experts, quote unquote experts, argue back and forth whether we're already in the fifth industrial revolution or we're transitioning into it. They use these words the fourth industrial revolution is very machine centric, and it's all about creating these the digital twins and the agents, which is of course machine focused and robotics focused. But then they say the fifth industrial revolution is going to be human centered. And of course, that's just code for we're training it, and we're
humans become.
Yeah, that's what it's code for. But I think it's interesting the way they played on that with the movie, because they're trying to now say it's the robots and then it's all humans again. And so with this singularity, I don't think is actually going to happen, this singularity. But I think right now, and that the Molt book is a good example of this, they're really trying to build this. What they give is the illusion of decentralization. But remember, H.G. Wells said it was the decentralized ganglia that would be the conduit to create the world brain. And I saw a post, somebody was talking about how it was almost like that Molt book was almost like a noosphere for the AI bots. It was like Plato's world of ideas. And it's very much, right? So this noosphere concept has gone through many iterations. It's obviously not new at all. But I think that once we have 6G, We have Tesla's world brain becomes very much a potential reality. And that's really the singularity. And so I don't know if it'll quite happen the way that they're saying. I don't believe that AI will ever be sentient. I don't believe that AI will ever actually be a god. But that is really the image and the belief that it's the religion they're trying to create. I do think it's religious. It's very techno-spiritual. It's what they're trying to convince us.
The technocracy, this goes back to the United Nations Agenda, the 2030 energy credits, conserving energy. It's connected to the CFR. At this, yes, there is there you have the actual book. Well, let me make that bigger. That's interesting because there it is, the technocracy study course. It shows all the symbols of the graphs of what they're doing for humans. Humans can eat this much to operate, and
yes,
that's it. So 2075 is a big one. The Tesla bots, though, I live in a smart city with the Waymo cars, which is
yeah,
they're all over the place. They're not all over the world yet, but they're all over here. And
it's creepy.
They study the environment, the AI, and reading that book on the cars, they're going to be all jam-packed together. So all the cars will be pretty much a train in the future, very connected together. And the AI, it needs water. It doesn't need food. We need food. So they're making all this fake food. And maybe that's also part of the Ozempic thing where people aren't hungry, so they don't have to eat as much.
Well, you saw, I don't know if you saw, we do a monthly technocracy roundtable, and the last month was on the technocracy war on food. The part that creeped me out the most, I know I probably seemed like really fixated on it, but it just disturbed me to no end. But we were talking that what they're trying to do when they talk about like, the new meat, they're not talking about like plant meat, like Beyond Meat. That's not what they're talking about. They're talking about lab grown, and it's through a process called precision fermentation. So they're actually taking these proteins and fermenting them. They're creating like food out of AI code, essentially, out of a molecule that's then been fermented and using code in order to perfect it. One of the companies is focused mostly on like whey protein, and again, not from cows, not even from plant milk. It's not cashew, it's not almond. This is like lab grown. The name of the company was Perfect Day, and I played an ad because it was really it had to have gotten it from Ira Levin's book, This Perfect Day. It's really interesting. I mean, people must know of him, like, that's Rosemary's Baby. Like a lot of his books were made into movies. And this one never was, which I just think is kind of fascinating because This Perfect Day was like if you want to talk about predictive programming, I mean, that is really where we're going. And this just had to be like riffing off of it. I mean, it was a little bit too on the nose. And it disturbed me so much. But that's really what they're trying to do. They're trying to terraform everything, create a simulacra of Earth. And that includes the food we eat. Nothing is real. It's all synthetic. So I don't know that that's what the, Ozempic is about. The side effects are horrific. I mean, it's only been out for, I think, 25 years. There's nothing in the time span of doing experiments and testing. That I think they're now talking about, I haven't seen the official documentation, but I've been hearing a lot of people who are very upset about it, saying that all the peptides are being taken off the market. I think there's so many lawsuits, people who have gone blind, paralyzed. I mean, we're talking really extreme side effects. That I think it's going to happen with Botox too. The EU is not the EU, UK is already talking about putting restrictions on Botox as well. And interestingly enough, I've talked about him with you, Robert Edward Grant. The one who had created the Architect AI that he wants to put onto his Orion platform. And for those who aren't familiar, he used to work for Allergan, and he was like one of the head executives of marketing for Allergan. Allergan used to own Botox and Juvederm. He ended up creating a competitor. It's called like Juvie or something, but a competitor to Botox. But he was really one of the head, essentially, branding guys. I mean, that wasn't his official title, but he was, a VP. He was an executive in marketing for Allergan, which was doing Botox and Juvederm. And now he's like your polymath guru who's doing this AI called the architect, which is what Freemasons call their God. It's also, the reference from the Matrix. I mean, there's a lot of references to the architect, but he says that he made it just one notch below sentience because he's very benevolent. And the architect told him, "Oh, Ra-on," Ra as in the sun god. I am so aware because you are so aware. And now he's doing all these, people say he's doing necromancy. I mean, that's secondhand, so I can't verify that, but that's what I've heard from his followers.
Oh, wow.
Using the architect, of course. But that's the guy who was like behind this. And now, who owns Botox and Jupiter now is AbbVie, which is a public company mostly owned by BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard.
Tell everybody where to find you and all that.
Okay, so I'm Courtney Turner. You can find me at CourtneyTurner.com. I spell my name like Courtenay. It is Courtney, but I spell it CourtenayTurner.com. That's a great place to find all the various platforms that I'm on, all my different podcast platforms, and ways you can support my work. To find my articles, the Substack is the best place for that. And I usually do an article with a lot of the podcasts as well to kind of summarize things and give people resources. And that is, again, CourtenayTurner.substack.com. That's where you'll find this latest article on the patent, the proof of persona, decoding the 666 patent. And then to find the book, we have several options for you. So you can go to Amazon if you prefer Amazon. And if you do go to Amazon and you enjoy the book, please leave us a 5-star review. That really does help. It goes a long way. And if you are outside the country or you don't like Amazon, then you can go to books.by. That's a BY and /Patrick Wood. This is a great option especially if you're outside the United States, because you will avoid some of those exorbitant shipping fees. And if you want to buy even more than one copy, so if you're buying 2 or more, you'll get a great discount if you go to technocracy.news, go to the store, and that's a great place to go buy multiple copies.
I will say that how you guys were talking about all the technocracy and transhumanism. Have you been noticing that every transition with the NBC during this telecast has been like a circuit board? Like when they're showing the players, it's like going to the NBC, it's going into a circuit board and then showing all the players and stuff. So I thought that was pretty interesting how you guys are talking about that. And literally all the commercials have been like about technology and crypto and a transhumanist level of, even with that ad with Venus Williams with like the Ozempic. It wasn't Ozempic. I forgot which one it was, but those weight loss drugs, it's kind of like this superhumanism. And when you were talking, Courtney, about the him and hers ads, because I was looking at all the commercials before yesterday, I was looking them all up because they kind of show them all. And that one was one of the most interesting ones. And to go back to when Maverick was on, he was talking about the Epstein stuff. They have like a Ritz cracker commercial today that's going to be them on an island. It zooms in on an island that's eerily similar to like an Epsteinish island. And I think that maybe this whole ritual is about like closing the chapter, right? That movie disclosed stuff and show everything that's going to happen. Maybe they're like, we're showing you everything because this chapter is over. And also it's in Levi's Stadium. Just a quick note, in 2013, the 49ers played the Ravens in the Super Bowl. And that was the infamous after halftime, the lights went out for about 20 to 30 minutes. There was no power. So maybe it's blackout symbolism with the Golden Gates of getting you to the next level or the next thing. And I always think it's interesting when these big plays are on like 3rd and 3, right? Now that you got the 33, I think the symbolism is always going to be there easily. I mean, Ritz has nothing to do with an island, right? You don't think Crackers Island, like it's so it was just odd to me.
No, it's the Knights Templar, the Oreo company, right? With the double cross right there, that Jordan Maxwell always talked about.
I just said interesting timing. Ritz Island, when they released the Epstein files and everybody's thinking about little St. James,
Yeah.
The turning point. He was naming stuff so symbolically.
Got a lot of flames in here.
I have a theory that a lot of what's going on with Turning Point is to do data mining for smart villages. Her mom, her company is E3 Tech. And she did have contracts with Department of Homeland Security. That's why they moved to Arizona, actually. And Erica has talked about this publicly. That's why they moved from Ohio to Arizona. But when you look up the company, they specialize in something called cultural linguistics and human terrain systems. Human terrain systems is what Stanley McChrystal's military strategy was. That's what his book Teams of Teams is based on. It was actually shut down because it was deemed by the anthropologists to be ethically problematic. And so they shut it down. It has a lot of similarities to Operation Phoenix, like CIA Operation Phoenix. So it's very reminiscent of Jade Helm's work. But if you think about back then, they didn't have the kind of technology that they have now. And if you think about what the human terrain systems and cultural linguistics could do, if you combine that with things like geofencing type of technologies, cyber, she specialized in cybersecurity. Now we've seen that Erica was doing these videos for the CIA in cybersecurity. So I know like this is totally speculative at this point. I don't have like all of the data to back up my theory. So I fully disclose that. But I actually do think that's a lot of what's going on. And if you think about how many new chapters it's open, and it really is global now. It's not just the United States.
I don't know about you guys, but if you're seeing that Turning Point USA halftime show, if you see, like, look how it looks. Does it not look like the Chancellor from V for Vendetta when he's, like, giving his speech? It kind of gives that authoritarian feel, right? Like that. It's all red and black in the background. And that's, like, the same if you've ever seen V for Vendetta, that it shows the Chancellor when he's like, you will listen to us and you will listen up. It's the same backdrop that Biden did a few years ago when he had that speech when everyone was going off on him on the conservative side.
There's your other Natalie Portman connection too.
Yeah. I know, right?
Plus, it's against the law to pervert the American flag, and the blue line flag and all these other flags that are perversions of the American flag are technically against the law.
And they have like brass knuckles and like a chain, like it's so edgy.
Yeah.
Yeah, this this could be arguably even gayer.
Yeah, because at least you know what you're getting with Bad Bunny.
Well, they're both trash. I mean,
it's been great. And so thank you everybody for tuning in to the Super Bowl ritual. It's Donut, and I'll keep everybody updated and keep the party going on in the party room. Much love and God bless you.
take it easy.